maybe I just do a very quick thing on the Platner situation. So here's the timeline for anybody who has not quite followed along. Platner is a non-DSA endorsed Democrat who largely was very, very critical of the Democrats and also tended to have a lot of vocalized beliefs that were very close to generalized leftist ideas, as opposed to your general liberal ideas. There were contingents in both the left and the liberal areas of the internet that liked him and disliked him for various reasons. There are liberals who are not very happy with the state of the Democratic Party, who saw him as a nice voice of change, and there are leftists who liked the rhetoric that he used that was much closer to their own rhetoric. And there's also the contingent of the dirtbag left that really, really likes the woke 2.0 getting angry at people stuff. And I'm going to be honest, I'm in that category as well. I'm an abrasive motherfucker. So, that said, then you get the two other sides of this. You get the purity testing liberals, and the purity testing liberals tend to look at Platner as a person who has done wrong in the past and therefore should not have power, because it's very hard for them to see him as anything other than that. And then when you look at the people who are further on the left who were critical of him, largely it boiled down to his time in the military, his time in Blackwater, a lot of the things that he had said and done also being seen as deal breakers as opposed to spotty bits of a past. Now, in a previous video, somebody did say that actually I've not seen the thing you've seen. And you're right. I've seen both, though. I have seen both of these things. I'm not getting either camp mixed up because I am saying what I see in the two different camps here. Now, the right wing right now is just fapping about here because they are recognizing that when we have somebody who's being argued as a rapist, we tend to tell them to step down and not actually run anymore. And when they have somebody who legally was convicted as a rapist, he becomes president of the United States. Jester says, I think everybody has seen these now. You would be very surprised. My comment section's a wonderful place sometimes. So, as of right now, Platner has actually decided to drop out of the race. And he's dropped out of the race for a variety of reasons. The main nail in the coffin having been that one of his exes said that he had sexually assaulted her somewhere in the time of 2020 and 2021. Now, his recollection of that scenario was that he didn't have one, but he also was blackout drunk at the time, so we would have expected that he would not remember a scenario, whether it happened or not. The ex, on the other hand, her version of the scenario was that he was blackout drunk, went to her apartment when she didn't want him to, got in because she had left the door unlocked because that was a habit that she had, and forced himself on her, and then she decided that the safest thing to do there was to fawn, and then the safest thing to do after that was to not let him leave the house while drunk. Now, there's conversations to be had on one side or the other about what the actual safe thing to do would be, but remember that when you're not the one with the deer in the headlights thing going on with you, it is very, very hard for you to be objective about what you would do or would have done in a situation. As somebody who has been in a life or death situation more than a singular time, I don't know if I did the correct thing in mine when a knife was to my neck, but I know that I did the thing that let me be here today, so whether I did the objective right thing, fuck if I know. Most people are going to have that experience when they're faced with life or death. Or when they're faced with, sexual assault, which oftentimes is, the brain is not going to tell the difference between the two of them. As far as it's concerned, it's all fucking over. So, those are the two accounts that we have between. Now, points in Platner's favor were the fact that the messages that she claimed to have had with Platner about the situation that had happened were all deleted. And as a result, the smoking gun that we would expect is not there. However, point in her favor, when it comes to sexual assault, it's very, very hard for us to find an actual smoking gun because a lot of time it's going to be a he said, she said scenario, and it comes down to whether or not you believe the victim. At that point, a lot of conversations come down to character testimony. How reliable of a narrator has this person been in the past versus how reliable of a narrator are they right now? For the record, I believe the victim is telling the truth. I did an entire hour and a half long video breaking down every single aspect of the conversation that she had with CNN, with Jake Tapper, about her time with Platner, and what ultimately came from that. I covered all of that in as much detail as I feel like I possibly could have in order to make sure that I was objective about the situation. And I walked in on Platner's side and walked out on her side. Now, let's get a couple things out of the way real quick. Yes, anybody can make an accusation against anybody else. And yes, the timing of the accusation is very, very convenient. But the end result of this is plain for everybody to see. Platner is stepping down, and at least for the time being, he does not seem to have any wants to continue trying to seize power within the Democratic Party. Now, what is remaining to be seen is what he's going to do as a result of this. There's been a lot of talk in a lot of the lefty circles that, oh, his right-wing grift begins now. Oh, he's going to go on a podcast soon and talk about how the woke left canceled him so that he wasn't able to help them save abortion or something. Like I've been seeing a lot of that around on the internet. And I'm going to be honest, when his entire platform kind of began and ended with he is a person who was shitty and has now changed, I do have a worry that might happen, but I don't think that that's what's going to happen. We'll find out. He still has his oyster farm, and maybe that will end up paying the bills. I don't know. Jassa says best he can do is fade into a name that was a thing for a few months, then just a nobody. Yeah. Tal says, if a woman is blackout drunk and forced her way into a man's house and forced herself onto him, would she be called a rapist? And Fennec says, I would call her one, yes. I mean, the wider culture may not because of the fucky views around sex, but yes. No, I would agree as well. The idea that a woman cannot assault a man is ludicrous. It is a thing that can happen. However, in this situation, we also have to accept that that's not what was being argued. What was being argued is that he did the thing. And while we can say that if a person is blackout drunk, their ability to consent to a situation, even shit that is being done because of their own actions, is loose at best. It doesn't undo any actions that they engage in, much like if somebody is very drunk and then gets behind the wheel of a car and then crashes into somebody and kills them. We don't just not try them for vehicular homicide because alcohol was involved. That's not how our legal system works, and that's not how culpability works. You do still have responsibility for the pain you cause, even if it's caused while you are terribly inebriated. Very quickly, let's go ahead and look at what MSNBC has to say about this real quick. Assuming that they have an actual reporting on this, and this isn't just a random video.
A political bombshell from a defiant Graham Platner.
We are suspending campaign operations.
The embattled Democratic candidate saying overnight in a video statement he plans to withdraw from Maine's critical U.S. Senate race, while also denying a newly surfaced rape allegation against him.
The things that have been claimed did not happen. It's not real.
Platner also railing against a party apparatus that he says pulled its support, including a vow not to help him raise money.
Those in power who have the ability to do so are using these allegations as an excuse to take away all of the things that we need to run a campaign.
Now, I do want to note, this actually is a thing that the Democrat apparatus does do. So if you remember, Marjorie Taylor Greene had several people who were planning on running against her throughout her tenure as my representative. And one of the people who was running against her, Brittany Tenenbaum, is somebody I actually had as a guest on my channel because of her experience working with the Democratic Party, being the one who was poised to be the person against Marjorie Taylor Greene. And why was she not able to do that anymore? Why was support pulled from her from the Democratic Party at large in the local area? Well, because photos of her in burlesque surfaced on the internet. That's why. They saw her in sexy cosplay, and that was considered a deal breaker. So I am not... what's the best way to put this? What's the best word for this one right now? I think it's not an I am not. I think it is I am thoroughly disillusioned with how the Democratic Party's apparatus functions when it comes to its politicians. That said, I would expect when it comes to rape allegations for them to pull support. That is actually something to pull support over. Although, you can definitely guess there's going to be one person in the comments section who's going to pause the video right there and say, Suris, there's a difference between being in burlesque and being a sexual assaulter. And if you played the video for 5 more seconds, you'd get to this part.
Know that some will think it's an admission of guilt, and it most certainly is not.
Once seen as a rising star, Platner facing a firestorm these last few days after a former romantic partner, Jenny Rassicot, publicly alleged he
Yeah, this is the interview that we watched.
sexually assaulted her 5 years ago.
Did Graham Platner rape you?
By definition, yes. Absolutely. He violated multiple layers of consent that night.
Now, the implosion of Platner's campaign throwing into chaos a race Democrats saw as their best.
Not burlesque. 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 Artemis. And you know what? Just gonna go ahead and just gonna give you an image real quick. Think sexy pinup girls. That's probably the most accurate that I could give you, but there you go.
Best hope of flipping a Republican Senate seat, currently held by Susan Collins. Maine Democrats will have just 2.5 weeks to select a replacement for Platner, the state party saying it'll hold a nominating convention.
And what I care about is that Mainers feel represented in this process, that they feel included in this process.
Now, what's funny about her saying that she thinks that she wants Mainers represented in the process is that right now, they're not. So right now, there's 600 people within the Democratic Committee in Maine that are going to pick the new candidate that will replace Platner. Not have another election, not have an emergency election. No. And I have a post here. I thought I had a post here about it, but I don't. So, Kyle Kulinski had a statement on this, basically being very, very disparaging toward the Democratic Party. And I had it saved to use, and it's just not here in my thing anymore, which is not what I wanted. Oh, well, that's fine. That is A-okay. We'll just go back to the video itself.
That we have the full transparency every single step of the way.
So, Hallie, perhaps no surprise here, a number of folks have already thrown their hats in the ring to be Platner's replacement in that race. But notably this morning, there's someone who says he is not going to be running that's making some news. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that's right, Greg. He a familiar face, and not just in his home state of Maine. Patrick Dempsey, you may know him as McDreamy from Grey's Anatomy. He says he gave real thought to running, but in a new op-ed, Dempsey says while public service is honorable, he thinks he can contribute more effectively through the life he's already built. As for the candidates who do want to run, this is a process that is going to move fast. There's that July 27th deadline to pick a new candidate, Craig, and then a very truncated sprint until November. Lots of folks watching this.
All right. Our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, on that breaking.
Okay, I actually got the bit from Kyle Kulinski now. Found it! Platner suspends his campaign, zero guarantee of an anti-genocide, anti-war, pro-Medicare for all candidate, no caucus of Mainers, closed insider process. Because this is the statement that we are getting from the Maine Democrats. Today, the Maine Democratic Party held a meeting with over 100 state committee members who voted to hold a nominating convention to choose a new nominee if there is a vacancy to fill. We will announce the full timeline, details for how the nomination process will move forward, information about how to participate, and requirements for candidates soon. We will keep the public informed throughout the process. Transparency is of the utmost importance. There's an unprecedented amount of energy and enthusiasm among Maine Democrats, driven in part by many in the dedicated volunteers and supporters who were inspired by Graham Platner's campaign. We look forward to coming together and harnessing that energy around our new nominee as we work to defeat Susan Collins this November. He's going to be selected. He's going to be selected, not an emergency vote, selected. I wonder what the fallout of that is. Let's find out. Let's see here. Shameful. Using delegates to select a candidate is not what we want. Learn from 2024, for fuck's sake. Maine Democrats are so cooked. They went from the largest primary turnout in state history to 100 party insiders selecting a nominee. Yep, that's not going to blow up in their faces. Said this question is just for Democrats and the left at all. Aren't you really tired of not being able to pick your own candidates? This seems to be a concerning trend. You know what's funny? That's one of the problems we had against Marjorie Taylor Greene. We didn't select Marcus Flowers. Not the first time. He was sent to us. So, this is not a new process. This is a pretty standard process. It's agitating as fuck. It's very, very agitating. Seeing this again and over again. Anyway, there's the full Platner situation. The allegations themselves, whether true or not, he is out of the race. There is some talk about the idea that he dropped out, not just because of pressure from Mamdani and Bernie Sanders and the like, but also because there was other stuff that was going to be used against him, and he might have dropped out as a way to stop the other shoe from dropping. I don't know if that's the case, but that's just shit that I've heard whispered around lately, and I don't know if I hold any credence to it, because the rape allegations themselves, like, that's enough. That's enough. But that's everything about the Platner situation right now. We can be frustrated with both Platner and his campaign, and with the Maine Democrats on the whole for, not doing a democracy as well as they wanted to. But by the way, this is the thing we did with Harris. With Harris, there was a very specific reason we did it that way, but that didn't make it not agitating when it happened. So, for anybody who doesn't remember, the reason that we had Harris specifically is because we didn't have access to the funds from the Biden campaign unless it was Harris in the front of the campaign instead, and that was the determining factor. So it was money. Capitalism fucks everything, guys. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.